Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa.
And hello again, everybody, and welcome into the latest edition of Tider Insider TV alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris, and unfortunately, Rodney, for the second straight week, we're up against Alabama basketball. But it is what it is. I do not like Tuesday night at 6 o'clock games. Do not like them. But we will have an update, of course, on basketball coming up. But we're going to begin with college football because the season ended last night with Ohio State winning the national championship over Notre Dame in the first 12-team college football playoff. And the final AP poll came out today, and Alabama was ranked 17th, also 17th in the coaching poll. Why is that noteworthy? Well, it's the lowest Alabama has been in the poll since, well, Nick Saban's first season in 2007 when they weren't ranked at all. 17th, not what we expected for this team, regardless of the coaching change. 9 wins, also snaps a string of 16 consecutive 10-win seasons. And Alabama was ranked behind 4 other SEC teams in the final poll, and a lot of the preseason polls have them behind even more than that going into next year. But still, Alabama has the 6th best odds to win the national championship next season, according to DraftKings, at plus 1,200. But still, Rodney, let me bring you in here. Okay, there were some high points. We've discussed them. Man, the win over Georgia, the win at LSU, the blowout win 34-0 over Missouri, beating South Carolina. There were some high points in this season, but the lows were really bad. The loss at Vanderbilt, the loss to an average Oklahoma team, not being able to pull it out against Tennessee, and then the bowl game debacle against Michigan. 9 wins, 17th final poll. I know it's the first year without Nick Saban, but still, I think based on those numbers, I think most Alabama fans would not consider this season to have been a success.
No, I mean, obviously not. Here's the thing, though. We've talked about this repeatedly. When you talk about a first-year major transition, which this was the greatest transition in terms of the significance of it, the difficulty of it, all of those things. I mean, I think when you look at that and keep that into perspective, there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road that first year anyway. But this was a season, Gary, where you knew that there were going to be some difficult times because you got a new coach coming in, obviously. You've got personnel that probably didn't even really match what he wants to do. Offensively, especially, and you're putting in a new defense. You're bringing in new players. You lost 3 guys that I think are first-round corners from the year before. You lost the best safety in the country, Caleb Downs. You lost the best pass rusher, probably Dallas Turner, in the country. You lost a lot of guys on defense. So when you look at what they did defensively, I think as the season went on, they were really good. Now, again, I think they have to get a lot better against the run, Gary. You look at the games they lost, they got dominated in the run game. They didn't run the ball well. They didn't stop the run well. So they've got to get better in those areas. Offensively, I'm not really concerned because this is the forte of Kalen Deboer. I think he's going to get the offense where it needs to be.
Yeah, now you do move on from this season, and it starts with recruiting. And Alabama put together a 2025 recruiting class that's ranked in the top 3 of just about every recruiting service. So player acquisition is still important. I know it's changed a lot with the portal and NIL, but still, it starts with recruiting, and Alabama's got a really highly ranked class, like we're accustomed to.
They really do. They have a great class. I think they did a fantastic job of filling needs. Gary, I think one thing, too, that we need to consider is look at what they did in terms of bringing guys back, whether it's Tim Keenan, L.T. Overton, Deontay Lawson at linebacker, Justin Jefferson at linebacker. They picked up some really key parts, I think, in the portal. When you look at Isaiah Horton, the wide receiver, you look at Nakia Hill-Green, the linebacker who led Colorado in tackles this past year. So I think when you look at those, and there are others, but when you look at those and the roster that they've put together with not only the recruiting the last 2 years, but using the portal to kind of supplement that, I think you can see some areas where they're going to be really strong next year.
And speaking of recruiting, we touched on this a little bit last week. Obviously, they get in here. They've got a lot of relationships on the West Coast. You recruit to your strengths, still learning the state. 2026, though, it looks like there's going to be much more attention on recruiting the state of Alabama.
Yeah. And I think, first of all, people have wondered why But at the same time, like you said, Gary, it's where your relationships are. And I think when you talk about when they first got here last year, so much on the plate. I mean, he's trying to save a recruiting class. He's trying to put a staff together. You hit the portal. You've got spring practice. You're already behind in terms of recruiting anyway. So you're even further behind in the state where Auburn has better relationships because they have longer relationships. So I think, yeah, they were playing catch up there in state. I think obviously this year it's a pretty good year. You've got some really good players. Zion Gibson's already committed, the outstanding cornerback from Gadsden City. You've got Tank Jones down there. He's one of the top outside linebacker edge players in the country from St. Paul's that Alabama's recruiting really hard. And again, these are going to be really competitive battles. But, Alabama seems to be in better position right now than maybe they were last year this time with in-state players as you start to go into this class.
Yeah, and if you just look at social media, we've seen a lot of picture days, in the state of Alabama with Alabama coaches visiting. So that looks good. All right, let's get to the 2025 season because 2024 is in the rearview mirror now. And for Alabama, it's a chance to kind of be in a role that they're not used to being in a role of, and that's a little bit of an underdog.
Yeah.
Most of these way too early preseason top 25s, and they are too early, but I haven't seen Alabama in the top 10. In fact, I saw one on 3 that had them 14th behind 6 other SEC teams, including Auburn, which has had 4 straight losing seasons, and Alabama's beaten them 5 straight times. So when we go to SEC Media Days in July, I don't think we're going to see Alabama pick 1 or 2 or playing in Atlanta or national championship contenders. So maybe have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder and something to prove.
Well, I think it's fair to say there's doubters right now.
Yeah.
There's doubters in terms of, Kalen Deboer. There's doubters about this Alabama team. You've lost some players, obviously. You lost your quarterback, Jalen Milroe. But when you look at it, Gary, I think they have a really nice nucleus defensively. I think the defensive line should be better. I think you've got some outstanding linebackers. We talked about those inside guys. I think when you look at the secondary, those guys last year, a lot of people were questioning them. By the end of the year, Mo Lindquist had them really playing extremely well in the secondary. I think when you look on the offensive side of the ball, they've got some veteran players. I think Parker Brailsford may be the best center in the country. We know about Caden Proctor and Jaden Roberts. Those two guys started, this is going to be their third year starters. They started, when you look at Proctor, he started as a true freshman. They won an SEC championship game. So I think they got the nucleus there on the offensive line. Wilkin Formby at right tackle. So I think they got the nucleus there. Ty Simpson's been around a while. It's going to be really interesting to see those quarterbacks. You got a nice running back room, and I think the wide receivers will be upgraded this year.
Yeah, good stuff, Rob. Before we go to the break, just a quick thought on the first 12-team playoff. I guess the thing I took away from it with Alabama not in it and no SEC teams in the championship game, it seemed like it was a little bit of a disconnect. But really, Ohio State, Notre Dame played their final regular season games almost 2 months ago.
Yeah, wow.
What'd you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. You use the word disconnect. There seemed to be a disconnect. You didn't get that feel last night, Gary. So I'm sure they're going to make some adjustments to this playoff, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, one thing, I don't like the buys. I don't think there should be buys in the college football playoff, but that's just my opinion. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television. After a disappointing home showing last week against Ole Miss, Nate Oates and the Crimson Tide made a statement when they came back and won at Kentucky, hung 102 on the Wildcats. We'll show you how they did it. Plus, Alabama women's basketball enjoying a week off after a blowout win in Fayetteville against Arkansas. Of course, Alabama men playing tonight. We'll have an update on the game against Vanderbilt. And a little bit later on in the show, as always, we'll get to your phone calls. And I know the game's going on, so I hate that. But if you are watching TITV, flip back and forth between us and the game. 205-348-WVOA, 205-348-9882 is the number if you want to give us a call. We'd love to hear from you on Tider Insider TV. We'll be right back after this timeout. And welcome back to TITV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa. Go to visittuscaloosa.com. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Well, Alabama men's basketball kind of experienced what basketball is all about this past week. They got held to 64 points at home against Ole Miss. I didn't think anybody could hold them to 64 points at home, but Ole Miss with Chris Beard did it, and then came back and had 102 against Kentucky. So that's what basketball is. But for Alabama, Rod, to bounce back the way they did, that's what quality teams do. You get you get held down at home to 64 against a quality Ole Miss team, but still just 64 points, lose 74-64. Then you go to Lexington and you hang 102 on the Wildcats and win at 102-97. That's what I call bouncing back in style.
You know, we talked about it last week before the game, the Ole Miss game, right here on Tighter Insider TV. We talked about, we thought they had a really gutty effort at Texas A&M on the road, come back, didn't play well, weren't in sync. They look like a totally different team in Rupp Arena. You know, Grant Nelson looked like a totally different player. Alabama looked like a different team. Hit some really clutch free throws in this game.
They did.
I think that, to me, that was a major difference in this game. So, yeah, I mean, they showed a lot of poise, Gary, and a lot of mental toughness.
Yeah, Coach Oates called the effort against Ole Miss disgusting. You mentioned Grant Nelson against Kentucky, 25 and 11. Mark Sears, 24 points and 9 assists. By the way, Sears needs 19 points tonight against Vanderbilt to become the 82nd player in NCAA men's basketball history to score 2,500 in his career. Of course, some of those came against at Ohio, but still, what an opportunity for him tonight. So Alabama is a team that, Rodney, when they're in rhythm offensively, of course, that's the challenge for teams, is to get them out of rhythm offensively, and Ole Miss was able to do that. But when they're in rhythm offensively, you feel like they'll score every time. When you watch them play, you think they'll score every time they go down the court.
Yeah, you know, Gary, I think when you look back at that Ole Miss game, they really didn't, you know, Ole Miss kind of dominated the boards defensively. Alabama was a one and done, but, you know, I thought that, obviously, they out-rebounded Kentucky in this game. They played well offensively. You're talking about they shot the ball extremely well, got a lot of contributions from different guys.
And with that win, Nate Oates is just one win shy of tying Wimp Sanderson for 25 career wins over top 25 opponents. Remember, Coach Sanderson coached 12 years here. So Nate Oates is doing a lot of stuff. By the way, Alabama up on Vanderbilt right now with just a little over. Well, Vanderbilt just scored. So it's 41-25 now with a little under 3 minutes to go in the first half. But still, Alabama looks like they've learned their lesson from last week as they're off to a good start against the Vanderbilt Commodores. We'll update you again later in the show. Well, Alabama women's basketball up and down a little bit as well. They played South Carolina and really hung in that game last Thursday night at home. They've all 76-58, but that was a 5-point game with about 6.5 minutes to go in the game, and then South Carolina finished it on an 18-5 run. Still without Sarah Ashlee Barker, their best player, but Alabama bounced back on the road in Fayetteville against a pretty good Arkansas team. Rodney, how's this for bounce back? 94-62. So this Alabama women's team, 4-2 in the SEC. They played basically every conference game without Sarah Ashlee Barker. She got hurt in the opener in the first half against Florida. This team has shown a lot of grit and fortitude.
They have. They really have. And the question is, and I know some people have asked this, Gary, do we know when she'll be back?
She's still listed as day-to-day, but they've got it. They don't play again until this weekend. So I'm hoping this weekend. You know, I guess they have to, you know, they can't really discuss these injuries because of HIPAA, but day-to-day gives you the impression that she's going to be coming back soon. It's turned into a month, but hopefully gets back. But Alabama looking good in the SEC, and this is a team that, as we've said before, I don't think the goal is just to make the NCAA tournament. I think it's to get in the NCAA tournament and make some go. As far as Sarah, make some headway. But as far as Sarah Ashlee is concerned, Rod, when she gets back, I guess if there's been a silver lining in this, it's that they've proven they can win without her. And now when you get her back, you're only going to be that much stronger.
Well, and I think, too, when you're not relying on her, you're relying on more players, right? And I think, you know, that confidence that they build, you know, you got more players contributing.
Yeah, for sure. So this Alabama team finding its footing without Sarah Ashlee, but hopefully, as we said, she will be back this weekend. And now it's time for Coach Talk. Let's take a listen to how proud Kristy Curry is of her team and how it performed without star guard Sarah Ashlee Barker. As we mentioned, she's basically missed the entire SEC schedule with a lower leg injury, and the Crimson Tide has gone 4-2 in that span. Here's Coach Curry.
I don't know that I'm excited about me. I'm just happy for them. They've been putting so much work and time in. I mean, you know, I feel like that, you know, with SA being out, it's been wearing on them a little bit. People don't understand what she does just by her presence on the floor and just her leadership and her voice. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to do that, and the way our kids have stepped up to try to be more vocal, be in the right spots, communicate in huddles, all the things that they've done beyond just impacting the stat sheet.
All right, still to come on TITV, our weekly Bama in the NFL segment. See which Crimson Tide players shined in the divisional playoffs. And coming up next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, that phone number, 205-348-9882. If you're watching us, we'd love to hear from you. If you're flipping back and forth between us and the game, go ahead and give us a call. You want to talk Bama football, basketball, whatever's on your mind, we will discuss it with you when we return to this edition of TITV. Bama in the NFL, Brian Robinson Jr., man, he had a big game, and so, of course, did Jahmyr Gibbs. But there's Robinson Jr., 2 touchdowns, 77 yards on the ground as the Commanders stun the Lions. But here's Jameson Williams off a toss from Gibbs. Watch Williams. This is how fast the guy is, Rodney. He's got a guy on him right here, and he just pulls up at the 15 and says, I'm in. Yeah. But I tell you, I was shocked to see the Lions win, but good game for Jahmyr Gibbs, 170 total yards, 2 touchdowns. Brian Robinson Jr. and Jameson Williams all had big games. In the Eagles game, Jalen Hurts still can use those feet, buddy. He pulls that down and gets a touchdown. Unfortunately, he hurt his knee later in that game. Wasn't very mobile, but the Lions got the win, 28-22. Derrick Henry didn't get used enough. Only 16 carries against the Bills. And he still finished with 84 yards and that touchdown. But the Bills beat the Ravens. The Ravens come up short again, 27-25, the final. All right, welcome back into TITV, 205-348-WVUA. Again, I know we're up against the basketball game, but I'm told the phone lines are wide open. So if you want to get through, this would be an excellent opportunity. 205-348-9882 is the number. All right, let's go ahead and do our email question of the day. And it's brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to heating and air conditioning, KDM Service Corporation serves your family like our family. And here is the email question of the day from Carrie in Tuscaloosa. Any update on Ryan Grubb? Of course, Ryan Grubb, the former offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks, former coordinator with Kalen Deboer for many years. No, Rodney, I don't know of anything. What's the latest you're hearing?
You know what? It's still the same, Gary. I mean, it's a lot of speculation, obviously. It's been really quiet. It's been quiet on this end. It's been quiet with Grubb in terms of other jobs. Again, I think we'll just have to let this one play out.
Yeah, we will. And you and I have discussed this. I think everybody automatically assumes offensive coordinator. That would require one of the offensive coaches to come off the field in some capacity. He made a lot of money with the Seahawks. I think he's still got another year on his contract. There's always a possibility he could come on board as an analyst. So
many things, Gary, again. And I know, a lot of people are speculating if it's going to happen. Why hasn't it happened? There's always a lot of reasons. Again, at this point, there's really nothing new.
All right, let's get to one more email question before we have to hit the break. And this one is from Robert in Birmingham, and it just kind of, I guess, plays along with what we're talking about with the offensive coordinator situation. Of course, Nick Sheridan is the offensive coordinator, and from what I am told by some people that I trust, Kalen Deboer is very happy with Nick Sheridan. But the question is, do y'all think Kalen Deboer will call the plays this season? That's from Robert in Birmingham.
You know what? Kalen Deboer usually allows his offensive coordinator to do the play calling. Doesn't mean he wouldn't interject if he felt the need to, but I would be a little surprised about that, whether it's Sheridan, and especially if it was Grubb calling the plays. But and I say that because of the past experience. I would be highly doubtful, Gary, that Nick Sheridan would be the offensive coordinator not calling the plays.
All right. Thanks for those emails. Again, phone lines are open, 205-348-9882. We'd love to hear from you. Basketball update, 56 seconds to go in the first half. Alabama leading Vanderbilt 46-29. Well, still to come on TITV, Alabama Gymnastics is looking ahead after losing its SEC opener against Kentucky. Hear what Alabama Gymnastics star has to say about that. And as we said, we'd love to get your phone calls on. 205-348-9882 is the number. We'll take a timeout, and we'll be right back with more TITV.
But everybody was eager to get back in here, and the things we learned to put into use. We talked about it a lot. We're actually talking about it today, but we're just eager for another opportunity to get better on Friday.
After losing the first road meet of the season at Kentucky last week, Alabama host, by the way, #1 Oklahoma in Coleman Coliseum on Friday night at 7 p.m. Oklahoma might have been down a little bit in football, but let me tell you something. On the women's side of things, with softball and with gymnastics, they've brought a lot to this conference. They are really good. Hey, listen, we had Coach on last week, Coach Johnston, on our show live. this Friday night, man, is an opportunity to pack out Coleman Coliseum because, Rodney, when I tell you Oklahoma is dynamic, it will take Alabama hitting, really probably having to be mistake-free to even have an opportunity to win this meet.
Coach Johnson said they're a dynasty.
Yeah, they are, and they're going to come in here on Friday night, that's for sure. All right, update on basketball. It is halftime, and Alabama's up 48-31, so the Tide is looking good. All right, we're not getting the phone calls tonight. I thought this might happen with a basketball game, but we do have another email that we can pop up and get to. How long has it been since Alabama baseball made the World Series? That's from Lucy in Northport. Well, unfortunately, Lucy, it's been 26 years. 1999 was the last time Alabama made it to the College World Series. Unbelievable, because when Coach Wells first got here, it seemed like they were going just about every year. But even some of his really good teams in the early and mid-2000s didn't make it. And, I mean, he had some great teams. Rob Vaughn is doing a good job, Rodney. Are they going to be ready to make a run at the World Series this year? I don't know, but I wouldn't count them out. I do think that's where they're headed at some point. I think Rob Vaughn is going to be the coach that gets them back to Omaha.
It just seems like everything else in the SEC, Gary. I mean, it's really tough. The competition is really tough. So when you're behind a little bit, it's tough to catch up.
All right, Lucy, thanks. We're going to get to one more email question. I am told from Patrick and Hoover, does Alabama basketball need a better inside presence to compete in March? I think they've got it. I think Amori Rodney is really starting to come into his own now. He's getting adjusted to the system. That's why they brought him in here. And when I say inside presence, I'm talking about on defense too. Listen, they made it last year all the way to the Final Four without what you guess you'd call dominant inside presence. So my answer would be, I think they've got enough to get to the Final Four, don't you?
No, I do too. And I think as this SEC season goes along, you're going to see more of that.
All right. Thanks for the emails. And we're going to come back and wrap up this edition of TITV right after this. It is so cold outside, but unlike the Gulf Coast, where it is a winter wonderland, at least I guess we're not getting any snow. Some of you may be disappointed. We'll be right back. Alabama cheer wins the national title in the co-ed division on Sunday. It's the 7th national title in cheer and first co-ed title in over 10 years. Also, the girls squad finished as runner-up, man. Talking about top-notch cheer. How about that? National championship and a runner-up. Congratulations to the Crimson Tide. And that's going to do it for this edition of TITV. A reminder, you catch a replay tonight at 10:30 or find it anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. We're going to leave you tonight with Alabama tennis spring season opener as Alabama beat Georgia Tech in Game 1 and sweeps the series 4-0. Good night, everybody.